Today on Dylan Talks Tone, we're going to work on our little baby Strats. How's it going? My name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Tone, and we have over 400 videos now on our YouTube channel that talk all about guitar tone and guitar setup and all that sort of stuff. And today we're going to talk about guitar setup. Now, you may have seen our previous video. We'll put a little link to it up here in the gray box. And it talked about how we always need to set up a guitar, no matter where it comes from, no matter how expensive it is. But I'm going to show you on the more economical side of things, because that's where most of us live, right? How to set up a guitar from the store that just came here. Now, I had a viewer, an amazing thing happened. One of our viewers actually ordered from Guitar Center and sent me these two little baby Strats just to play with and have some fun and make some videos. And this one I've tuned up and I've played a little bit. This one I've not even touched since it came out of the box. So, what do we do with a guitar when we get it out of the box right from your local retailer? Now, sometimes they're set up really well, but don't count on it. Look at it yourself and figure out exactly what you think you might want to do to the guitar for yourself. Let's talk about a couple of things that I'm going to do to this guitar that you might see on something that you buy at the store as well. First of all, string weight. What string weight are you going to use? I think these are 9s, which would make sense because it was probably for a kid, so they probably put something real light on there. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 10s, which means we're going to have to look at the entire guitar setup, and I'm going to do that with you. The other thing I noticed about this guitar is it has a little bit of sharpness on the ends of the frets. Now, on a more economical guitar, a lot of times that is a thing. It's just kind of part of it, that you're going to have a little bit of sharpness on the edge of the frets. Now, this could be for a couple of reasons. One, because they didn't really set it up properly or at all. They just took it out of the box from Fender or from Asia or from Gibson or wherever, and they put it on the wall. And the reason is because by the time it got to you, the climate has been pretty hard on it, and it's caused this to happen. So, I'm going to show you, using some real basic, real economical tools, how we can solve this problem, and we can get the frets real nice. We're going to look at the polish on them, we're going to look at the ends, and we're going to go ahead and put 10s on it, and we're going to get this guitar set up and ready to play. I guess the first step would be, let's get the strings off of it. So one of the very first things we got to do once we got the strings off the guitar is really want to look at the fret ends of this thing and decide how we're going to address it. So I bought this file set off of Amazon that we can use to dress the fret ends. It's really cool. It's actually a guitar kit. It came with a straight file with a file block. It came with a sanding block, which we probably won't use today. It came with fret end protectors. On this particular guitar, it probably won't be necessary, but I'll show you anyway. So, some stainless fret protectors. So these are really cool because when you put them on the guitar, you put them over the fret like this, and when you work on this particular fret, then it protects the rest of the fretboard and you don't have any issue with, any kind of damage or anything. So let's talk about what we need to do with this particular guitar. The fret ends are kind of sharp. That just happens. There's a few different ways you can do it. This particular kit comes with this file. Okay, so this is like a straight file, but it's actually like an emery stone. But actually, I don't think we need to go so crazy with this particular guitar. So literally, all we're going to do is we're just going to touch this to the end of the fret. And that's literally all it takes sometimes. Just a little touch. And those frets are smooth. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them. Sometimes we need to do something a little different. because the way they crimp the fret on the end when they clip them, sometimes the fret is squished a little bit. And then we go ahead and we take a 3-sided file, and this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to run it on the inside of the fret this way, and then we're going to run it on the inside of the fret this way. And what that's going to do is take that hard kind of mushroom edge off of the inside. When you do this, you just got to be careful that you don't mar the fretboard. That's really it. And we just do that all the way down the neck wherever it was needed. This guitar only had a couple of frets that was needed. So now we've got smooth fret ends, and it's time for strings. Alright, so we warp ahead to putting a set of 10s on this guitar. So now this is where the real setup begins. It had 9s on it before with no setup. Normally, when I set up a brand new guitar, or any guitar, I take a bunch of measurements first. But if I'm going to do a new string gauge that's going to change everything all anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I just pulled the strings off, we fixed the fret ends together, and now we're going to go ahead, now that we've got 10s on it, it's tuned up to pitch, the strings have been stretched, and then it's been retuned to pitch. Okay, so now we're basically where we start. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in playing position, okay, not flat. And I'm going to put my first finger on the first fret, and then I'm going to take my pinky finger and put it on the first fret that shows where it's attached to the body. So right there. And then halfway between, I'm going to look and see what the space between there is. I want about 5 thousandths to 8 thousandths of an inch, which is about what it is. So the neck, which is the playing surface, is where I want it to be. Now the action is not right, but the playing surface with the amount of tension that we have on the guitar is where I want it to be. We don't even need to mess with that. The next thing I want to look at here is the nut height. Now I went from 9s to 10s. I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to probably hit the nut a little bit with a file and bring this down. Now one of the things I do when I do a nut, when I measure it, is I put the neck rest underneath right here so that I'm not like messing with the body. Believe it or not, when you're messing with thousandths of an inch, just the weight of the guitar down here versus up here can make a difference. Okay, so let me grab my feeler gauges, and I like to start at a factory setting of 20 thousandths of an inch. We're going to say that the D, the A, and the E need to come down. So I'm going to grab my files, I'm going to tune this string down a little bit, and we'll get it out of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit this nut. When we do this, we want the nut to be at the same angle that the string pulls down to the post that it uses. Okay, I didn't have to hit it very much, I don't think, because I believe that the reason it's too high is because it was so narrow that it was holding the string up. So what we're doing here is we're correcting the angle, and we're also giving the string enough room to go down in the note where we want it to. Alright, low E, I can dig that one. Now the A is good. Alright, now the E is good. Let's go ahead and fix those strings really quick. Now, one thing I noticed while I was tuning is, while we didn't really have to do anything to the high E for the height, there's a little rattle in it. So let's go ahead and take our 10 and address that little rattle, because that rattle means that the angle here is not correct. We don't want to take a lot of material out of here, we just really want to clean it out. perfect. The rattle is gone. Sometimes when these less expensive nuts are made, there's a little flashings and little bits in them where the angle's not 100% perfect and they just throw the strings in there. So just running the file through there just once, just to get rid of that rattle. Now it's perfect. One of the tricks you can use to do this is, if you do not have a set of nut files and you're just trying to clean out the grooves, is take an old string, for the wound strings, you can just take an old string clipping and just use it as a string file and just run it through there. Sometimes it's good to do that on all guitars, really, just to keep that clean so that the friction is good and so that there's no little, pieces of plastic or anything hanging up your string like we had here. On the unwound strings, you can just like rub the string on some concrete or a file or something, just get it a little bit rough and just run it through there so that it keeps it clean and takes care of that. Alright, so the nut is taken care of. We've got the height where we want it. Now, let's look at this string height, because as we talked about before, the neck is flat enough how we want it, but the action is still too high. So, same thing. I like to put the neck rest underneath here so we're not affecting much of the measurement. And let's look. Oh yeah, way too high. So at this point, we just bring down our saddles, make sure we do it evenly. And I like to, once they're done, I'll give you a little trick here. Once they're done and you have it to the height you want, listen to it again and make sure that you don't have any loose nuts here. I don't know if you can hear this. There's a rattle in there. That's from one of these Allen keys being loose against the bridge, and it's rattling against the bridge, so that saddle is not transferring all the energy it needs to transfer. So when you do this, make sure that everything's nice and even and that you don't have anything super loose. Now, I'm not giving you specifications here because every specification is different. You can look at the literature for your guitar or Google the specifications that you should baseline. Alright, so nuts done. String height is done. Frets are dressed. Now it's on to, and it's all tuned back to pitch. Now it's on to what everybody thinks kind of is the hard part of setting up a guitar, and that is intonation. So, what is the concept behind intonation? Well, basically we want to have exactly the same distance from the saddle to the 12th fret as we do from the 12th fret to the 1st fret. Okay? And the reason we need to adjust intonation is for the compensation of the thickness of the strings. So whatever the scale length of the guitar is, that's your high E. And then the thickness of the strings going up here is going to need to be compensated a little bit. Okay? So if you ever have one string that's way off from the others, there's a different problem going on, or you're not doing something exactly right, because there really should only be some incremental differences between each of these string saddles. If you've got one that's way off, chances are you've got another problem. So this is not as hard as everybody wants to make it out to be. Let's go ahead and talk about how we set intonation. It's not that hard. First of all, make sure that the guitar is set up the rest of the way. You want this to be the last adjustment. One of the reasons people have difficulty with intonation is because they have really high string height, or they have the nut height is wrong, or something like that. All that stuff needs to be done first. If you're having intonation issues, I do not recommend hitting the saddles right away. Go all the way back to the beginning, which is neck relief, then nut height, then string height, then intonation. Do it in that order. Okay, so let's go ahead and tune our high E up to pitch. Now I'm using a strobe style tuner. Now this is a clip-on, so it's not as accurate as using like a bench style tuner, but most of you are going to use this. So I'm getting it as exact as I possibly can. I mean, really like taking the time here. You can see that I'm... Okay. Now, I'm going to come down here and lightly fret just enough. Don't push down, but just enough to fret the note. Now I'm right-handed, playing right-handed, and as I look at this, the tuner is going this way. Okay? So as I'm looking at it, it's going flat, so the tuner is going this way. So that's what way my saddle needs to come. Retune the string. Perfect. Alright, now that one, the tuner is going way sharp, so the tuner is going this way. That means the saddle needs to go that way. If you're right-handed, the saddle needs to go whatever the direction the tuner is going. That's the easiest way to remember it. So if it's going sharp this way, saddle needs to go that way. If it's going flat that way, saddle needs to go that way. That's all there is to it. And there it is. The guitar is set up, and this is pretty much set up how I would set one of my builds up. A couple things to remember. When you're working with a new guitar out of the box that hasn't been touched by anybody, which a lot of more affordable guitars are that way. They show up to you in a box. A lot of times those fret ends just need to be touched. We'll leave a link in the description below of the little tool set that we got. It's only like 12 bucks or something at the time of this video. $12 American. And then just remember that if you change strings, you might have to look at that nut a little bit and get that nut height correct, okay? Then you're almost always going to have to set your string height. That's almost always going to be the case. And then set your intonation. And that's really it. This guitar can be set up the same way a really expensive guitar can be set up. And the thing about it is, a really affordable guitar can play like an expensive guitar if you set it up correctly. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's a bad guitar. It can be set up correctly. Now, the reason I think it's super important is because if you are not an experienced guitar player, or if you are buying this guitar for someone who is not experienced, going to this extra work is going to make sure that they enjoy their guitar playing experience. When I pulled this thing out of the box, the action was so high that on this little guitar, as an adult, it probably wouldn't make much difference. But if you were handing it to somebody who was less experienced, they would have a completely different learning and playing experience now than they did before they started. There's no fret ends to make them uncomfortable. It frets properly and with very low action all the way up the neck, and it makes the guitar nice and easy to play. Not to mention, the sound's going to be better because they're going to be able to fret properly. The intonation is correct, so they're not going to sound out of tune as they learn their notes and chords. It's very, very important to do this with even the most economical guitar with the least amount of experienced player. People think that, oh, they don't know what they're doing, they're just a new player anyway, they're not going to know the difference. That is not right. They will know the difference because they'll sound in tune sooner. They will be able to fret notes correctly sooner. They will learn more quickly and feel more comfortable on the instrument. So, no matter your budget, no matter your situation, taking a little bit of extra time to learn this, either to do it yourself with our videos, we've got a whole series of them, or to take it to a professional that lives close to you. Usually, you could get this in your area done for 50 bucks or something, right? If you're in the United States, it's not super expensive to do it, and it's worth doing. My name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Tone. This just gives you an overview of what you should do to a new guitar when it comes out of the box. There are a couple little issues with this guitar that I noticed that we're going to address in future videos. Viewers have told me that these tuners are kind of junky. I'm beginning to agree, so maybe we'll address those tuners. And then we're going to take this pink one, and we're just going to go nuts. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we're just going to go nuts. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell next to it so you know the next time we make a cool video like this. And if you have any questions about guitar setup, whether you're a beginner or an experienced player, put it in the comments below and we will make a video just for you.